On the coldest Christmas Eve in 20 years, William Turner realized he might lose his daughter the same way he lost his wife. And the only shelter in miles was an abandoned church whispered about in old ghost stories. Subscribe before we enter this storm, because this night will change everything for a widower, his children, and a stranger hiding where no one should be. The snow came fast and mean, blowing sideways like the sky wanted to bury the world whole. William hunched over the wagon seat, reins frozen in his stiff, aching hands. Beside him, 8-year-old Jack pressed against his side, jaw clenched, trying not to let fear show. Behind them, buried under 2 soaked wool blankets, little Beth shivered so violently it rattled the wagon boards. Her cough was deep and wet, the kind that stole grown men from their families, let alone a sick child in a blizzard. "Pa, how much farther?" Jack asked, voice thin. "Mile, maybe 2, William lied. Truth was, he couldn't see more than a breath ahead. The blizzard had swallowed the road, the world, every landmark he trusted. The horses fought the drifts, foam freezing at their bits, legs trembling under the weight of snow and exhaustion. 1 more mile might finish them. William's gut twisted. Beth's fever had hit sudden and hard, burning her up even in this deadly cold. Then, through the white blur of storm, a dark shape rose from nowhere. Roof, walls, a cross on top. The old church. Abandoned 5 winters ago when the town built a new one closer in. William hadn't thought of it in years, but now it felt like salvation. "Thank God," he breathed. He steered as close as the drifts allowed, then leapt down, lifting Beth into his arms. Her head lolled, her breath shallow and frightening. "Jack, stay close," he ordered. Snow slammed into them like fists as they forced their way through knee-deep drifts. William hit the church door with his shoulder, shoving it open as wind screamed behind them, and stopped cold. A lamp was already burning inside. A woman stood near the front pew, one hand gripping a worn travel bag, the other raised as if ready to fend them off. Dark hair escaped her bonnet, her wide eyes reflecting equal parts fear and disbelief. For a long heartbeat, none of them spoke. Widowed rancher with a dying child, a frightened boy clutching his coat, and a lone stranger hiding in a place no one should have been on a night like this. "I didn't think anyone else would come," she whispered. "William thinks he's found shelter." But the woman standing in this abandoned church is running from a danger far worse than the storm outside. "I'm Lydia Brennan." Her voice was educated Eastern, frayed at the edges by fear. William introduced himself, Jack and Beth, then laid his burning daughter on a pew where Lydia had spread her cloak. Outside, the wind howled like wolves circling a wounded calf. Inside, the church smelled of cold stone, old wood, and lamp oil. "I need to see to the horses," William said, torn in half. Every instinct screamed not to leave his children with a stranger, but the team would die in this cold. "Go," Lydia said, already at Beth's side, cool hand on a too-hot forehead. "I'll watch her." When William stumbled back in, half frozen, the lamp burned brighter. Beth lay wrapped in Lydia's shawl, Jack on the floor beside them, watching with open curiosity. "Her fever's high," Lydia said calmly. William heard the words, but his mind flashed to another winter, another fever. Sarah, his wife, burning away in their bed while he sat helpless. He took Beth's hand. Her skin was a brand. The storm sealed them in. Snow sifted through cracks. Jack snored softly on the floor. Lydia dozed sitting upright, hands still resting on Beth's arm. William did not sleep. Every time Beth whimpered, "Mama," the old grief knifed through him. At gray dawn, Lydia knelt beside him with purpose in her eyes. Let me see her. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking pulse, eyelids, breathing. Do you have willow bark? No. Whiskey? Some. And clean snow, as much as you can carry. William obeyed, grateful for orders. Lydia mixed whiskey with melted snow, bathing Beth's forehead, neck, and wrists, working fast but gentle. How do you know all this? William asked. I trained as a nurse, she said quietly. And I've seen fevers like this before. Some fight through, some don't. We're going to help her fight. As the storm rages outside, a widower who's already buried one love must decide if he trusts this runaway nurse with the only family he has left. They worked straight through the morning. Lydia sent Jack for fresh snow, made William keep Beth's head lifted, trickled water between the girl's cracked lips, drop by patient drop. Talk to her, Lydia said. Let her hear your voice. So William talked. He told Beth about the new calf born last spring, about wild roses near the creek, about how Jack had learned to whistle just to annoy him. His throat ached, but he kept going. Around noon, Beth's eyes finally fluttered open. Pa? I'm here a little bit. I'm cold. William almost laughed with relief. Cold meant the fever was breaking. Lydia wrapped Beth in every blanket they had and made her sip water slow and careful. The next sleep was different, deep, peaceful, honest rest. She'll mend, Lydia said at last. The worst is past. William had to look away. His eyes burned. Thank you, he managed. Jack threw his arms around Lydia, startling her. You saved her, he said simply. Lydia froze, then slowly hugged him back, tears slipping down her face before she could hide them. As the storm howled outside, the three of them formed a small, fragile island of warmth around Beth's sleeping form. When exhaustion finally dragged Lydia to a far pew, William draped his heavy coat over her shoulders. She didn't wake, but something in her face softened, like she hadn't felt safe in a very long time. For the first time since the blizzard hit, William felt something besides fear. Something that tasted a lot like hope. That night, with snow still pounding the church, they talked in low voices. About Sarah, about loss, about how Lydia had been traveling west alone. I was supposed to marry a man named Martin Creedon, she admitted, fingers brushing the yellow-green bruise around her wrist. My father signed the papers. I left before he could sign my life. William listened, jaw tight. He knew the look of someone choosing hard freedom over a soft cage. By the time the storm begins to break, William owes this stranger his daughter's life. And Lydia's past is already galloping toward them with a rich man's fury. The third morning, pale sunlight slipped through the cracks in the boards. The storm was finally letting go. Beth was weak but clear-eyed, clinging to Lydia's hand as she ate small bites of cornbread from Lydia's pack. Where's Mama? Beth asked, eyes going soft with confusion. William's throat closed, memories choking him, but Lydia answered gently. Your Mama's with the angels, honey. She's been there a while now. Beth frowned, then nodded. I forget sometimes. That's all right. Lydia soothed, smoothing her hair like she'd always done it. Outside, the world was buried in white. The horses were alive but exhausted. The wagon stood half snowed in. Home was 3 long miles away. She'll need care for days yet, Lydia said, listening to Beth's breathing. Regular food, warm bed, someone to watch her. She hesitated, then added, if you take her home, someone has to keep an eye on her lungs. Beth fixed her big eyes on Lydia. Will you come home with us? Lydia's composure cracked. We'll see, sweetheart, she whispered. But William had already made up his mind. Bringing this woman into his home was a risk, but sending her back into the cold with nowhere to land felt worse. "Come with us," he said plainly. "My cabin's small, but there's room. Beth needs you. And if that man you're running from comes sniffing around, it's easier to protect you under my roof than out here alone." Lydia looked from his face to the children's, to the abandoned church that had sheltered her. "All right," she said at last. "For now." That afternoon, they dug out the wagon, loaded Beth carefully under blankets, and helped Lydia climb up beside her. As William snapped the reins and the horses leaned into the harness, Lydia hummed a soft hymn, Beth's head tucked under her chin. The world was still white and bitter, but the road ahead no longer felt empty. When William's battered wagon finally reaches his lonely cabin, Lydia isn't just a guest. She's walking straight into a life that's been waiting for her since the day Sarah died. The Turner cabin wasn't much. 2 rooms, stone fireplace, a porch that needed fixing, but it was solid and warm. Jack jumped down and ran ahead, shouting, "We're here!" William helped Lydia from the wagon. Their gloved hands brushed, and something unspoken passed between them. "Welcome," he said. Inside, Lydia moved like someone who'd been taking care of homes her whole life. She checked Beth's temperature, examined William's pantry, quietly noted what they lacked. That night, William made simple venison stew. Beth insisted on sitting at the table. "Because we're all together," she said, voice sleepy but determined. After dinner, Lydia washed dishes while William tucked the children into the loft. "She's nice, Pa," Beth whispered. "Can she stay forever?" "We'll see a little bit," William said, knowing full well he wanted to say yes. Downstairs, Lydia stood by the fire, staring into the flames. "Second thoughts?" William asked. "100 of them," she admitted. "But staying here feels right anyway. Martin will come eventually." "I know," William said. "And when he does, he'll find you're not alone anymore." Days turned into weeks. January came clear and cold. Lydia transformed the cabin without fanfare. Curtains from scraps of her spare dress, bread rising on the hearth, soft lamplight burning later at night. Every morning she taught at the kitchen table. Jack flourished under her attention. Beth struggled but tried hard, desperate to please Miss Lydia. Women from town began to notice. The mercantile owner's wife couldn't read. The blacksmith's daughter couldn't either. They asked if Lydia would teach them, and soon William's kitchen table was ringed with women gripping pencils like they were tools of revolution. Just as Lydia starts to believe this rough little cabin might actually be home, the man who thinks he owns her future saddles up and rides straight toward their door. It was a Tuesday, when hoofbeats pounded up the frozen road, and Lydia's face went white. William stepped onto the porch, placing himself between the cabin and the rider. Martin Creedon was everything Lydia had described. 40, well-dressed, perched on a horse worth more than William's whole spread. His face was handsome and cold as carved stone. "Mr. Turner," he said, like he was already bored. "You're on my land looking for my betrothed, Lydia Brennan. I understand she's here." The cabin door opened. Lydia stepped out, Jack and Beth clinging behind her. "Martin," she said evenly, "this has gone on long enough. Gather your things," he ordered. "No," Lydia answered. His eyes narrowed. "I wasn't asking." Martin flashed the contract her father had signed, a neat sheet of paper he thought was stronger than Lydia's will. "I have legal claim. You will return with me, or I'll bring the sheriff and strip this ranch from you board by board." William's jaw clenched. "She came here of her own choosing. She stays of her own choosing." "You're harboring stolen property," Martin snapped. William stepped closer, voice low. She's not a mule you bought at auction. She's a woman who said no. If you bring the law, we'll see what the law says about forcing women into chains. Martin's control slipped. Insults flew. About Lydia, about the children, about William's little life in the snow. Finally, he swung back into the saddle. This isn't over. I'll return with papers. Sheriff, whatever it takes. Turn her over or lose everything. As he rode away, Lydia's knees buckled. William caught her in his arms. I'm sorry, she choked. I should leave before he comes back. William shook his head. No. You run. He'll chase you forever. You stay. We face him together. You're not alone anymore, Lydia. Not ever again. Martin rides away planning to fight with contracts and sheriffs. But the town has watched Lydia, and they're about to stand between her and the man who thinks money makes him God. The next evening, 4 riders came up the road. Preacher Davis, the blacksmith Tom, Mrs. Henderson, and another neighbor. William's hand went to his rifle until Lydia peered out. It's the preacher, she said. Inside, the cabin suddenly felt too small for all that concern. We heard Martin Creeden came sniffing around. Mrs. Henderson said, eyes kind but sharp. Heard what he wants. Lydia stared at the floor. My father signed a contract, she whispered. Martin has legal right. Does a father's signature trump a woman's will? The preacher asked quietly. Law says yes, Tom muttered. But there are ways around the law when the law forgets what's right. The preacher cleared his throat. If Lydia were to marry of her own free will, here and now, that contract would be dust. A woman's choice of husband is stronger than any bargain her father made. The room went still. Marry? Lydia looked stunned. William had planned to court her slow, give grief time to settle. But there wasn't time anymore. I was going to wait, he said softly. Do this proper. But if marrying me keeps you safe, Lydia, I'm willing. He stepped closer. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough, he said. I know you saved my little girl. I know you made my son smile again. I know this cabin feels like a home because you're in it. But this is your choice. If you still want to run west, I'll help you go. If you want to stay. His voice roughened. Stay as my wife. From the loft came Jack's small, shaking voice. Please say yes, Miss Lydia. Beth's softer echo. Please. Lydia looked at them, at the neighbors who'd come to stand with her, at William, plain, steady, terrified of losing her. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, with a kind of wild courage, yes, I'll marry you. Mrs. Henderson clapped, Tom grinned, and the preacher pulled out his Bible like he'd been praying for this solution all day. Then let's do it now, he said, before that man comes back with trouble. With a hurried wedding and a borrowed ring, Lydia becomes William's wife. But Martin is already riding back with the sheriff, and this time he thinks the law is on his side. They made a wedding out of almost nothing. Coffee, cornbread, a simple ring from Mrs. Henderson's mother. Jack and Beth stood as solemn as grown-ups, while William and Lydia joined hands. Do you, William Turner, take this woman? I do. Do you, Lydia Brennan, take this man? Lydia looked at him like she could finally breathe. I do. The preacher pronounced them husband and wife. William kissed her soft and careful, the room erupting in cheers. That night, after the neighbors left, Lydia stood by the fire, fingers touching the ring. Any regrets? William asked. None, she said. For the first time since my father told me I'd marry Martin, I feel safe. Then we'll stay ready, William promised. 3 days later, Martin Creeden rode back, this time with Sheriff Porter at his side. William and Lydia stepped onto the porch together, shoulders brushing. "Mr. Turner," the sheriff began, hat in hand. "We need to talk about Lydia Brennan." "That's Lydia Turner now," William said calmly. "My wife. As of 3 days ago." Martin's face contorted. "That marriage is a sham, done to cheat a lawful contract." "Preacher Davis married us," William replied. "Tom and Mrs. Henderson witnessed. That's as lawful as it gets." Lydia stepped forward. "I'm of age. I consented. I chose William. I do not choose you." The sheriff unfolded Martin's precious contract, eyes skimming it. "You know the law, Sheriff," William said. "A woman's marriage choice overrides her father's contract. Is there any cause to separate a willing husband and wife?" The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. "No, there isn't." Martin sputtered, threatening lawsuits, annulments, ruin. William lifted his rifle, not aimed, but present. "You rode onto my land to take my wife," he said softly. "I'm asking you polite to leave. Come back, and I'll defend what's mine. That includes her." Humiliated in front of the sheriff and half the valley, Martin rides away. But a man like that doesn't forget. And Lydia still has to decide if she truly believes she's worth being fought for. Martin finally turned his horse and rode off, fury trailing behind him like smoke. Neighbors stepped out from porches and fence lines, quiet witnesses who'd been ready to stand between Lydia and any lawman who forgot what's right. Inside, Jack and Beth clung to her waist. "Did he take Mama Lydia?" Beth asked, eyes huge. "No, little bit," William said. "No one's taking her anywhere." If you're still here with them, don't forget to subscribe so more people can find these Western love stories that actually end in hope. That winter night, the cabin was full of company. Neighbors warming their hands by the fire, offering congratulations, promising to stand watch if Martin ever tried something foolish again. Later, when the house finally quieted, Lydia and William stood on the porch under a sky full of cold stars. "I still can't believe it," she said. "That I'm free. That this is real." "It's real," William answered. "You're my wife. This is your home. Those are your children." "Your children," she corrected softly. "Ours," he said, just as soft. Weeks turned to months. Snow melted, streams swelled, and the Turner place bloomed. Lydia planted herbs in the window boxes, then flowers, little explosions of color against old wood. 3 times a week, women came from town and neighboring farms, crowding around the kitchen table to learn their letters. Beth learned to read slowly, tongue between her teeth. Jack helped William with ranch work, proud of every chore he was trusted with. At night, William sometimes caught Lydia staring at the children with a look he knew. Grief and gratitude tangled up. "Do you regret it?" he asked her once. "Staying, marrying me?" She smiled, eyes shining in the lamplight. "Not for a single heartbeat," she said. "I thought I was running to nowhere. Turns out I was running straight toward home." They've beaten the storm, the fever, and a rich man's claim. But on quiet nights, Lydia still asks if she deserves this happiness. And William has one last answer that finally settles her heart. Spring came early that year. Birds sang from fence posts, green pushed up through the thawing earth. And the Turner cabin sounded different now. Laughter in the mornings, lessons in the afternoons, soft hymns in the evenings. One Sunday after church, Beth tugged Lydia's sleeve. "Tell me about Mama Sarah again," she said. They sat on the porch steps, sun warm on their faces. "Your mama loved you very much," Lydia said. "She taught Jack to read, made bread every morning, and sang while she worked." "Like you," Beth said. "Like I try to." Later that night, Jack prayed before supper. "Thank you, God, for Mama Lydia and Pa and Beth, and for making us whole. Amen. Whole. William looked around his table and felt it. His son and daughter healthy, his wife serving stew, lamplight soft on their faces. After the children slept, he and Lydia sat by the fire. "Tell me again how we met," she said, smiling. "Once upon a time," William began, "there was a blizzard and a father desperate to save his daughter, and a woman running from a life that would have killed her spirit. They found shelter in an abandoned church on Christmas Eve." "And?" Lydia prompted, leaning into his shoulder. "And she saved that little girl's life. The children prayed she'd stay. Their father asked her to. God listened. He took her hand, rough fingers threading through hers. Love wins, Lydia. Sometimes it takes a storm, a stranger, and a whole town standing up to say it out loud. But it wins. On some clear nights, if you stood out in the valley and listened hard, you could hear it from the Turner place. The crackle of fire, the quiet murmur of voices, Jack's laughter, Beth's sleepy questions, Lydia's soft reply, William's low answer. Two people who'd been broken in different ways, slowly mending each other. Snow would come again. Hard winters always do. But now there was a cabin that stayed warm, a family that stayed whole, and a woman who was never, ever property again. Just Lydia Turner, wife, mother, teacher, and the answer to a prayer spoken in a storm by a man who refused to stop believing there was still something worth saving. If you want more long, slow-burn Western love stories, where storms, secrets, and stubborn cowboys all bow to real family in the end, make sure you're subscribed. Our next tale from the frontier is already on the wind.